My daughter thought I didn't notice when she slipped something into my sewing box, acting normal as she walked away. But 25 years as a Chicago school teacher taught me to spot when someone's lying. When I opened that box later, what I found made my heart stop, not just because of what it was, but because I realized my own daughter was trying to destroy me. She never saw this coming. This story will show you exactly how a mother's love turned into a fight for survival. But first, tell us in the comments, what would you do if your own child tried to ruin you? Don't forget to subscribe for the full story. The afternoon sun came through my kitchen windows in Oak Park as I prepared for my Saturday craft fair at Lincoln Park. At 58, these weekend events had become my happy place since losing Robert 2 years ago. I was packing my sewing supplies when Lisa appeared in the doorway. Something about how she stood immediately caught my attention. Her shoulders were tight, movements too careful, like someone trying hard to look calm while feeling scared inside. "Hey, Mom," she said, her voice too cheerful. "Getting ready for your craft fair?" I nodded, folding my quilts. "Lincoln Park should be busy today." Lisa stepped closer, and every feeling I had screamed that something was wrong. Her eyes kept looking at my sewing box, then away, then back again. As a former Chicago teacher, I had spent 25 years reading kids' faces. "Mind if I check out your new patterns?" she asked, moving toward the box before I could answer. I watched her carefully. Her breathing was fast, sweat on her forehead, even though it was a cool September morning. When she thought I wasn't looking, she glanced toward the small pocket where I kept extra needles. That's when I saw it. Lisa's right hand moved quickly toward her jacket pocket, pulling out something small wrapped in brown paper. The movement was so quick, so sneaky that if I hadn't been watching carefully, I might have missed it completely. She placed the object deep in the sewing box's main section, hiding it under my fabric scraps and thread spools. The whole thing took less than 10 seconds, but it felt like watching a crime happen in my own kitchen. My heart pounded, but I forced myself to stay calm, continuing to organize my scissors as if nothing had happened. Lisa stepped back, wiping her hands on her jeans in a way that seemed more about removing proof than cleaning them. "Well, I should let you finish," she said, already moving toward the door. "Have fun, Mom. Sell lots of stuff." I watched her disappear into the living room, her footsteps echoing up the stairs. The kitchen fell quiet except for distant traffic and my own heavy breathing. I stared at my sewing box as if it had turned into something dangerous. Whatever Lisa had hidden inside, she clearly didn't want me to find it right away, but she also seemed to expect that I would find it later. The confusion made no sense, unless she wanted me to find it when it was too late to do anything about it. The truth hit like a punch. My own daughter had just planted something in my stuff, something she expected would cause me serious problems. I thought about recent months. Lisa's worry about money, her mood changes, the way she avoided looking at me during talks, signs I had blamed on job stress and sadness from losing Robert, signs I had explained away because I loved her. But 25 years of teaching had taught me that love could make you blind to truth. And the truth was sitting in my sewing box wrapped in brown paper like a gift I never wanted. Something wasn't right about my daughter's behavior, and I had a bad feeling that whatever she had hidden in my craft supplies was going to change everything between us forever. Standing in my kitchen, staring at the sewing box that now felt like a bomb, my mind went back to last night. Maybe I should have seen this coming. The signs had been there during dinner, written across Lisa's face in worry I had chosen to ignore. Thursday evening had started normal. I made pasta while Lisa set the table inside. The September air smelled like fall leaves, and for a moment it almost felt like old days when Robert would come from the den, joking that I was taking too long with the food. But Robert wasn't there. The empty chair at our dining table was a constant reminder of everything we had lost 2 years ago. Lisa had been super quiet, pushing food around her plate more than eating. Her hands shook when she reached for her water glass, but I thought it was just job stress. "Mom, I need to talk to you about something," she finally said, voice barely loud enough to hear. I knew that tone right away, the same voice she had used as a teenager when she needed money for school trips. But Lisa was 25 now, and these talks had become way too common. "What's going on, sweetie?" She took a deep breath, fingers tapping nervously on the table. "I'm in trouble, money trouble. I need $30,000. The number hit me like a slap. I set down my fork, looking at her face in the dim light. Her eyes were red, dark circles, making her look older than her years. When had she gotten so thin? 30,000, I repeated, trying to keep my voice steady. "Lisa, that's more money than I have saved. What kind of trouble?" Her jaw got tight, and I saw something flash across her face. Anger, maybe, or worry so deep it had turned into something darker. "Does it matter?" she snapped. "I'm your daughter. I need help. Of course it matters. I've been helping you for months. Rent money, car payment, groceries. Where is all this money going?" Lisa stood up fast, her chair scraping against the wood floor. "You don't understand. These people, they're not patient. They're not going to wait for me to figure things out." "What people, Lisa?" But she was already walking away, heading toward the stairs. "Forget it. I'll find another way." I called after her, but the only answer was her bedroom door slamming shut. I sat alone at the dinner table, surrounded by half-eaten food and a growing feeling that my daughter was involved in something far worse than no job. The rest of the evening passed in awkward silence. I cleaned dishes, watched TV, went through my normal routine while Lisa stayed locked in her room. I could hear her walking above me, sometimes talking on the phone in quiet, urgent tones. Now, standing in my kitchen 16 hours later, those quiet phone calls took on scary new meaning. Lisa hadn't been looking for real help last night. She'd been testing me, seeing if I would just hand over the money she needed. When I said no, she had moved to Plan B. Whatever was wrapped in that brown paper in my sewing box was Lisa's backup plan, her way of getting what she needed, no matter what it cost me. I thought about Robert, about what he would say if he could see us now. He had always been the calm one in our family, finding middle ground where I saw only right and wrong. But even Robert would have struggled with this. My daughter was planning something that would destroy me, and I was the only one who could stop it. Now it made sense why she had been so nervous around my craft supplies. The trap was already set. I couldn't wait any longer. Whatever Lisa had hidden in my sewing box was eating at me, and I needed to know what I was dealing with. My hands shook as I walked to the box. 25 years of teaching, fighting with motherly denial. The zipper opened with a familiar sound that had once brought me comfort. This sewing box had been my escape from the stress I had seen in my teaching career. Now it felt dirty. I lifted the top tray, showing the main section. There, hidden under my favorite blue fabric and thread spools, was the brown paper Lisa had so carefully placed. My heart hammered as I unwrapped it with shaking fingers. The paper fell away to show a clear plastic bag containing small blue pills. Even without checking, I knew exactly what I was looking at. I had seen enough news stories about OxyContin to recognize it instantly. The bag was full, maybe 100 pills. Street value of $3,000, maybe $4,000. More than enough to mean intent to sell under state law. More than enough to destroy what was left of my life. I sank onto my kitchen chair, the bag feeling like hot metal in my hand. The kitchen spun around me as the full size of Lisa's betrayal crashed down. My daughter was a drug addict. The signs I had missed suddenly showed up in my memory like bright warnings. The weight loss, red eyes, mood changes I had blamed on sadness and no job, the shaking hands, desperate need for money, quiet phone calls at all hours. How long had this been going on? How had I, a woman who spent 25 years watching over kids, failed to see that my own daughter had become one of them? But worse than the addiction was the betrayal. Lisa hadn't hidden drugs in my sewing box by accident. This was on purpose, planned out. She wanted me to find these pills, but not until it was too late. Not until someone else found them first. The truth hit me hard. Lisa was planning to frame me. I thought about Robert, about the promises I had made at his deathbed to take care of our daughter. "She's lost without me, Margaret," he had whispered. "Promise me you'll be patient with her." Patient? I had been patient for 2 years while Lisa fell into addiction right under my nose. Patient while she emptied my savings with endless emergencies. patient while she changed from the sweet girl Robert raised into someone I no longer knew. Tears. I hadn't cried since Robert's funeral burned my eyes as I stared at the pills. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about survival. My survival. If Lisa's plan worked, I would be arrested for drug dealing. At 58, a criminal record would mean losing my teaching license and spending my final years in prison while Lisa took everything Robert and I had worked our entire lives to build. The girl I had taught to sew in this very kitchen, the daughter I had loved without question, was willing to destroy me to save herself. I wrapped the pills back in their paper, my hands steadier now as cold determination replaced shock. Lisa thought she was playing chess with someone who didn't know the rules, but she had forgotten that her mother had spent 25 years staying one step ahead of troubled kids. If my own daughter wanted to play this game, she was about to learn that I had learned a few moves she never expected. My daughter was trying to frame me, and she never saw this coming. The pills sat on my kitchen counter like evidence in a case I never wanted to solve. But 25 years of teaching had taught me that emotions were a luxury I couldn't afford. If Lisa was planning to frame me, I needed to understand why. I walked upstairs toward Lisa's room. As I got to the landing, I heard her voice through the closed door. Urgent and begging. "I told you, Victor, I just need another week. My mom's being difficult about the money, but I'm working on it. Victor." I pressed my back against the hallway wall, every feeling from my teaching days telling me to listen carefully. No, please don't do that. Look, I have a plan. By tomorrow night, I'll have everything you need. $30,000, just like we agreed. $30,000. The same amount Lisa had asked for at dinner. My blood ran cold as pieces began falling into place. The conversation continued, Lisa's voice getting more desperate. "You don't understand, Victor. If something happens to me, you'll never get your money. Just give me until Saturday." I heard movement in the room, then Lisa's voice again, this time making a different call. "Miss Chen, it's Lisa. Yeah, I know the payment's late on the house loan, but I'm getting the money tomorrow. You won't have to start taking the house." My knees almost gave out. House loan. Taking the house. Lisa had used my home for something, and I knew nothing about it. 20 minutes later, Lisa came out of her room, dressed in her work clothes, looking calm despite the panic I had heard in her voice. "Heading out for that job interview, Mom?" she called down to me. "Wish me luck." I waited until I heard her car leave the driveway. Then I got to work. 25 years of teaching had taught me how to find things, and my own daughter wasn't going to outsmart me. Lisa's room told the story in scattered papers she had tried to hide. Bank papers showed huge cash withdrawals over the past 4 months. Credit card bills showed cash taken totaling $20,000, most taken at River City Casino. But it was the loan paper that made my hands shake. Miss Amy Chen, licensed moneylender, had given Lisa $50,000 using my house as promise. My signature had been faked on papers that put everything I owned at risk. I found gambling receipts stuffed in her dresser drawer, betting papers showing losses that grew week after week, phone numbers written on scraps of paper, including one labeled "Victor Emergency Only." The timeline became clear. Lisa had been gambling away money she didn't have. When the casino debts grew, she had borrowed from Amy Chen, faking my signature to use the house as promise. When that money ran out, she had turned to Victor Martinez for drugs, probably planning to sell them to pay her other debts. Now, both people were closing in. Victor wanted $30,000 by Saturday, or Lisa would face results that went far beyond money problems. Amy would take my house if her loan wasn't paid back within days, and Lisa, trapped between two dangerous people, had decided to sacrifice her mother to save herself. The framing wasn't just about getting money. It was about removing the only person who could stop her from losing everything I had worked my entire life to build. I sat surrounded by proof of my daughter's betrayal, feeling something cold settle in my chest. The house I'd worked 25 years for was already gone, signed away by fake papers and desperate lies. Sitting in Lisa's room, surrounded by proof of her betrayal, I felt the last bits of motherly feeling drain away. This wasn't about helping a troubled daughter anymore. This was about survival. I took photos of the loan papers and gambling receipts with my phone before putting them back in their hiding places. If this went to court, I would need proof that Lisa had faked my signature and stolen my house. But first, I had to deal with the immediate threat. The pills in my sewing box were a loaded gun pointed at my future, and I wasn't going to let Lisa pull the trigger. I walked back to the kitchen, my steps steady and purposeful. 25 years of teaching had taught me that the best defense was often a good offense. Lisa thought she was playing chess with an amateur, but she was about to learn that her mother had learned a few moves during her career. The pills sat exactly where I had left them, wrapped in brown paper. I picked them up, feeling their weight in my hand. 100 pills of blue powder that could destroy my life or save it, depending on where they ended up. Through the kitchen window, I could see Lisa's Toyota Camry parked in the driveway, an 8-year-old car I had helped her buy when she graduated college, back when I still believed she would make something of herself. I heard the front door open and Lisa's voice calling out, "Mom, my car is making weird sounds again. I'm going to take Uber to the interview to be safe. Don't want to risk breaking down." Perfect. Another lie to add to her collection, but this one worked in my favor. "Good thinking, sweetie," I called back. "Better safe than sorry." I waited until I heard the Uber arrive and Lisa's footsteps fade down the front walkway. Then I found her car keys hanging on the hook by the back door where she always left them. The Toyota's trunk opened with a soft click. Inside were jumper cables, a spare tire, an old gym bag she hadn't used in months. I moved the gym bag aside and placed the pills underneath it, hiding them against the wheel well, where they would be easy to find but not right away visible. As I closed the trunk, I thought about Robert and what he would say if he could see me now. He had always believed in second chances, in the power of love to fix even the worst mistakes. But Robert had never faced a daughter willing to destroy her mother to save herself. I returned the keys to their hook and walked back to my kitchen. My sewing box sat open on the counter, innocent now without its deadly cargo. I cleaned every surface Lisa might have touched, removing any trace of what had been hidden there. The irony wasn't lost on me. For 2 years, I had been trying to save a daughter who was already lost. Now I was trying to save myself from the daughter I had failed to save. My phone buzzed with a text message from Lisa. "Interview went great. Should hear back Monday. Thanks for believing in me, Mom." The casual lie might have hurt me yesterday. Today it simply confirmed what I already knew. Lisa had crossed a line from which there was no coming back. I thought about the phone calls I had heard, the desperation in Lisa's voice as she begged Victor and Amy for more time. She had promised them money by tomorrow night, money she planned to get by destroying me. But plans had a way of backfiring when you underestimated your opponent. I cleaned my sewing box completely, reorganizing my fabrics and threads until everything looked exactly as it should. An old teacher preparing for a peaceful craft fair. Nothing more. Lisa would return home expecting to find her trap perfectly set. Instead, she would find that the trap had been reset, and she was no longer the hunter. Now we would see who was really the better player. Lisa returned home just after 5, looking more confident than I had seen her in months. She walked through the front door with energy in her step, as if her problems had suddenly lifted. "How did the interview go?" I asked from my couch, keeping my voice casual. "Really well, Mom. They seemed impressed." She hung her jacket on a kitchen chair, movements relaxed and natural. "I think this could be the break I've been waiting for." I watched her carefully, noting how her eyes avoided the kitchen direction. She was performing, and it was convincing. If I hadn't known better, I might have believed her. "That's wonderful, sweetie. When will you hear back?" By Monday, Lisa moved toward the stairs, then paused. "I'm pretty tired. Think I'll rest before dinner?" I nodded, returning attention to the television, but I listened to every sound from upstairs, every creak, every muffled conversation through her door. It didn't take long. Within 15 minutes, I heard Lisa's voice, urgent and excited. "Yes, I need to report drug dealing. My name is Lisa Parker, and I have proof that my mother is selling pills." My heart hammered, but I forced myself to stay still. This was it, The moment Lisa had been building toward Margaret Parker, 58 years old. She's been hiding drugs in her sewing box. I saw her with a large amount of OxyContin this morning. I could hear the satisfaction in her voice, the relief of someone who thought her problems were about to be solved. She gave her address, described the sewing box location, even gave details about my supposed criminal friends. Yes, I'll stay on the line. Please hurry. I'm afraid she might try to move the drugs. The irony would have been funny if it weren't so sad. Lisa was right to fear the drugs might be moved. She just didn't know they already had been. I heard her end the call, then immediately dial another number. Victor, it's Lisa. Yeah, it's done. The cops are on their way to arrest my mom. You'll have your money by tomorrow. Then a third call. Miss Chen, everything's going according to plan. Once she's arrested, I'll have access to everything. Your loan will be paid in full. I sat in my living room listening to my daughter plan my destruction with criminal skill. Part of me was impressed by her completeness. The rest of me felt sick. 12 minutes later, I saw the first police car pull into my driveway, followed by 2 more vehicles and an unmarked car. Through the window, I recognized Officer James Wilson, my former student from Lincoln High. Lisa came downstairs, her face showing concerned innocence. Mom, there are police cars outside. What's going on? Her performance was perfect. If I hadn't heard her phone calls, I might have believed her confusion was real. The doorbell rang sharp and loud. This was it. Lisa moved toward the door, but I stood up first. I'll get it, sweetie. As I walked toward the front door, I caught Lisa's reflection in the hallway mirror. For just a moment, when she thought I wasn't looking, her mask slipped. The expression underneath was cold, calculating, and completely without sorry. The officers were about to arrive, and my daughter had no idea her perfect plan was about to backfire completely. I opened the front door to find Officer James Wilson standing on my porch, along with 2 DEA agents in tactical gear. Behind him, more officers secured my property. Hello, Mrs. Parker, James said, his voice professional but sad. We need to talk. Of course. James, come in. Lisa stepped forward, her face showing concerned confusion. Officer Wilson, what's this about? Is my mother in trouble? James' eyes moved between us, reading the situation with 15-year veteran skill. We received a report about drug dealing at this address. We have permission to search the house. Drug dealing, Lisa's voice carried perfect shock. That's impossible. My mother would never. It's all right, sweetie, I said calmly. Let them do their job. The lead DEA agent, a serious woman in her 40s, stepped forward. Mrs. Parker, we have information that you've been storing OxyContin in your sewing box. Lisa's eyes lit up with helpful cooperation. Oh, that's in the kitchen. I can show you exactly where it is. I followed the group to my kitchen, watching Lisa's confident walk. She was so certain of victory, so sure her plan was working perfectly. There it is. Lisa pointed to my sewing box. Mom was working with it this morning, acting really nervous. The DEA agent approached carefully, taking photos from multiple angles before opening the zipper. Lisa moved closer, excitement coming from every movement. The agent lifted the top tray, showing my organized collection of fabrics and threads. She carefully searched each section, removing items and looking at them carefully. Nothing. The agent looked up, confusion on her face. Mrs. Parker, we're not finding any controlled substances. Lisa's face went white. That's impossible. I saw her put something in there this morning. Check again, sweetie, I said quietly. What exactly did you think you saw? Lisa's calmness began breaking. There was something wrapped in brown paper. I'm sure of it. James Wilson studied Lisa with new interest. You seem very certain about your mother's sewing box contents. Why is that? Lisa's mouth opened and closed. I was trying to help. I thought I saw something suspicious. The lead agent finished looking at the sewing box. Nothing here. Should we search more? Wait, James said, detective feelings engaged. Lisa, you called in this tip, didn't you? Lisa's face turned red. I was just being a concerned citizen. If I was wrong, let's search your vehicle. James interrupted, tone no longer friendly. My car? Lisa's voice cracked. Why would you search my car? I'm the one who reported this. But agents were already moving toward the Toyota Camry. Lisa followed, confident walk replaced by nervous shuffling. The trunk opened with a soft click. The lead agent moved aside the gym bag and spare tire, then stopped. Her hand came out, holding a clear plastic bag filled with blue pills wrapped in familiar brown paper. "Lisa Parker," James said, voice cold as ice. "You're under arrest for possession of OxyContin with intent to sell and filing a false police report." Lisa's face went through shock, panic, then desperate thinking. "This is a setup. My mother planted that there. She's trying to frame me." "Really?" James asked. "Then why did you call us to search her sewing box instead of your car?" As handcuffs clicked around Lisa's wrists, she looked at me with pure hate. "You did this. You moved it." I met her eyes steadily. "Sweetie, I have no idea what you're talking about." The look of shock on my daughter's face said it all. She had never expected her mother to be the better player. 2 weeks later, I sat in Cook County Courthouse, watching my daughter face the results of her choices. Lisa appeared smaller in her orange jumpsuit, the confidence that had defined her completely stripped away. The state prosecutor laid out the case with clinical precision. 100 pills of OxyContin, street value $4,000, intent to sell, filing a false police report, attempting to frame a family member. "Your Honor," the prosecutor continued, "Miss Lisa Parker not only had illegal drugs, but planned an elaborate scheme to destroy her own mother's life." Lisa's court-appointed lawyer talked about addiction, desperation, and family pain from losing her father. But the proof was too strong, and Lisa's recorded phone calls to Victor and Amy had sealed her fate. When Judge Martinez asked if Lisa had anything to say, my daughter stood slowly. "I want to apologize to my mother," she said, voice barely heard. "I was desperate and I made terrible choices. I never meant for things to go this far." I sat in the gallery feeling nothing but emptiness. The apology felt hollow, performed for the judge rather than spoken from the heart. "Lisa Parker," Judge Martinez said, "you are sentenced to 3 years in state prison for drug trafficking and conspiracy." The gavel sound echoed through the courtroom like a door slamming shut on 25 years of motherhood. But Lisa's arrest had solved only part of my problems. Amy Chen still held fake papers claiming ownership of my house. Victor Martinez had disappeared after Lisa's arrest, avoiding police attention. I spent weeks working with my lawyer to prove the loan papers were fake. The forged signature was obvious once experts looked at it, and Lisa's confession helped establish the lie timeline. "The good news," my lawyer explained, "is that fake papers are void. Your house was never legally at risk. Amy Chen has left the state to avoid charges." Officer Wilson kept me informed about the ongoing investigation. We're working with federal marshals to track down both Amy and Victor. Lisa's cooperation might reduce her sentence, but she's looking at serving at least 2 years. 2 years minimum. My daughter would be 27 when released. I would be 60 if I lived that long. The house felt different now, emptier in ways that had nothing to do with Lisa's physical absence. I walked through rooms where we had shared meals, watched television, argued about responsibility. The memories felt dirty by knowledge of her betrayal. 1 month after Lisa's sentencing, I made a decision that would have been unthinkable before. I put the house on the market. "Are you sure, Margaret?" Officer Wilson asked. "This is your home?" "Robert's home," I replied. "Robert's gone, and the daughter I raised doesn't exist anymore. It's time to start over." The realtor said I could expect a quick sale in Chicago's hot market. I began sorting through 25 years of collected memories, deciding what deserved a place in my new life and what belonged to the past. Some chapters ended with celebration. Others ended with relief. This one ended with acceptance that family could betray the deepest trust. But survival meant choosing your own well-being over duty to those who would destroy you. 4 months later, I stood on the balcony of my new apartment in Neepville, Illinois, watching the sunrise paint the sky in gold and pink. The view was beautiful, nothing like the suburban streets of Oak Park, where I had spent 25 years building a life that ultimately belonged to someone else. The house sold within 3 weeks. After paying off the mortgage and legal fees, I had enough to buy this small place without debt and start fresh. No debt, no duties, no family members who might betray me for their own gain. I kept only what mattered: Robert's photographs, my sewing supplies, and the hard-earned wisdom that love without limits becomes enabling, and enabling destroys both giver and receiver. Lisa had written me once from state prison. The letter remained unopened on my kitchen counter. Some bridges, once burned, were better left as ash. Officer Wilson visited last month with updates. Victor Martinez was arrested in Detroit, facing charges that will keep him in prison longer than Lisa. Amy Chen remains a fugitive, but her loan sharking operation was shut down. "Do you ever regret how it ended?" James asked as we shared coffee in my new living room. "I regret that it had to end that way," I replied, "but I don't regret protecting myself from someone who would have destroyed me without hesitation." The truth was simpler than regret or forgiveness. I had raised a daughter who became a stranger, loved someone who saw that love as weakness to use. When faced with the choice between her survival and mine, Lisa chose her own. I simply made the same choice. My sewing box sat in the corner, cleaned and reorganized, waiting for weekend craft fairs at local parks where the people were honest and the quilts didn't lie about their intentions. Simple pleasures for a woman who had learned to value simplicity. Sometimes, the people closest to us become the greatest threats to our well-being. Sometimes protecting yourself means accepting that family can be the enemy. Sometimes, the hardest lesson in life is learning when to walk away from those you love most. I had spent 58 years learning that lesson. Lisa had the rest of her life to learn it too. Through Margaret's journey, we discover that real love requires wisdom, not just sacrifice. Stories throughout history teach us that enabling harmful behavior isn't compassion, it's being part of the problem. When betrayal stories happen within our own homes, we face the hardest test, choosing wisdom over our emotional attachments. Betrayal stories like Margaret and Lisa's show how addiction and desperation can turn loved ones into strangers. Margaret's teaching experience wasn't just career preparation, it was a way of giving her the skills for this ultimate test. Stories often speak of tough love, of drawing lines that seem harsh, but preserve what matters most. When Lisa chose drugs over character, when she chose lies over honesty, Margaret had already been given the strength to respond with justice rather than enabling. The most powerful stories remind us to be good protectors of our own souls. Sometimes, the greatest mercy is giving us permission to walk away from those who would drag us into their darkness. If this story touched your heart, please share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever faced betrayal from someone you trusted completely? How did you find the strength to protect yourself? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories about strength, family, and the courage to start over. Remember, sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to be destroyed by those who would sacrifice you for their own salvation.